The building stood tall against the night sky, its glass windows reflecting the pale glow of the city lights. Inside, the offices were silent. During the day, this place buzzed with activity. Executives in tailored suits, assistants rushing with files, meetings that shaped the flow of money and power. But now, at this late hour, the hallways were empty. The world of millionaires had long gone home. And in the shadows of that silence, a man worked. Henry Johnson, a 26-year-old black man with tired eyes and worn-out shoes, pushed his cart through the marble-floored corridor. His job was simple: clean what others had dirted, wipe away the traces of a world that didn't even see him. Most people passed him in the daytime without noticing his face. To them, he was just the cleaner. But behind that quiet, humble presence was a story no one bothered to ask. Henry wasn't just cleaning offices. He was fighting for a future. He stopped at the corner of a large boardroom. It was dark, save for the small desk lamp he had smuggled into his cart. He placed it on the floor, shielding it from view so no security guard would notice. Then he pulled out a thick, second-hand textbook, Economics for Beginners. The cover was torn, and pages were worn, but for Henry, it was gold. He sat down on the cold floor, back against the wall, knees bent as he balanced the book on them. His lips moved silently as he read, his finger tracing every line. He studied in the only way he could, between shifts, in stolen hours of darkness, while the rest of the city slept. Henry had grown up in Birmingham's roughest neighborhood. His mother worked 2 jobs. His father had passed when Henry was only 9. School was always a battlefield. Teachers who underestimated him, classmates who mocked him for being poor, and a system that seemed determined to push him down. Yet Henry never lost his hunger to learn. He dreamed of becoming something more, an accountant, maybe even an entrepreneur. He wanted to break the cycle, not just for himself, but for the children he hoped to have one day. But dreams cost money, and Henry had none. College tuition was far beyond his reach. Scholarships had slipped past him when survival came first. So he worked, cleaning toilets, mopping floors, scrubbing windows. And in every moment he could steal, he studied. That night, as the building slept, Henry whispered formulas to himself, writing with a cheap pen in a half-used notebook. The light from the small lamp cast shadows on his face, making his eyes burn with determination. What Henry didn't know was that someone else was still in the building. On the top floor, in a corner office larger than Henry's entire apartment, Michael Whitmore, a self-made millionaire, leaned back in his leather chair. He had been reviewing reports late into the night. His company dealt in investments, millions flowing across his desk daily. He was a man used to control, to power, to the world bending at his command. But even men of power grew restless, and as Michael walked down the hallway, jacket slung over his shoulder, he noticed something unusual, a faint glow coming from a supposedly empty boardroom. Curious, he stepped closer. Through the glass door, he saw him, the cleaner, sitting on the floor, bent over a book, lips moving as if whispering secrets into the night. The sight stopped Michael in his tracks. A man covered in sweat from cleaning floors, hunched in the dark, surrounded by silence, yet burning with focus. Michael frowned. To him, cleaners were invisible. Tools, not people. He paid them, they did their job, and that was it. But this was different. Why was this man studying here in the dark? He opened the door slowly, the creak breaking the silence. Henry jumped, quickly hiding his book under his ragged jacket. His heart raced. I was just taking a break, sir," Henry stammered, his voice trembling. Michael stepped inside, his eyes narrowing. "A break? At this hour?" His gaze shifted to the lamp and then to the book peeking out. He reached down and pulled it from under the jacket. Henry froze, his throat dry. Michael looked at the cover, then back at him. "Economics?" His tone carried both surprise and something else, a quiet amusement, maybe even mockery. "What does a cleaner need with economics?" Henry lowered his eyes. Shame burned in his chest, but dignity kept his back straight. I want to learn, sir. Someday, maybe go to college." Michael studied him for a moment, his face unreadable. Then he laughed, not cruelly, but dismissively, the way rich men often did when they heard something they considered impossible. College? You. He shook his head. Do you know how expensive that is? You can't mop your way into Harvard. The words cut deep, but Henry didn't flinch. His voice shook, yet he spoke. I know, sir, but I have to try. My mama always said knowledge is the only thing nobody can steal from you. I clean here to survive, but I study to live. For the first time, Michael's laughter stopped. There was something in a young man's eyes. Fire, resilience, a hunger he hadn't seen in years. It unsettled him. He handed the book back. Don't waste your time, he muttered, though his tone was softer than before. People like you don't get chances. The world isn't built for it. Henry took the book quietly, his knuckles white around it. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply bowed his head slightly and said, Then I'll build my own chance. The millionaire stared at him for a long moment before walking out, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the hall. Henry sat frozen, the book pressed against his chest. His body shook, not from fear but from the weight of those words. Yet inside, something stronger rose, a determination sharper than ever. He knew the world wasn't built for men like him. But he also knew one thing. No empire, no millionaire, no dismissive laugh could break his will to rise. And what Henry didn't know was that this late-night encounter had planted a seed in Michael Whitmore's mind, a seed that would grow into something neither of them could imagine. The millionaire thought he had simply caught a cleaner, studying in the dark. But in truth, he had just stepped into a story that would change them both forever. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the glass walls of Whitmore Investments. The offices, once silent, now buzzed with activity. Phones ringing, assistants hurrying, the scent of fresh coffee drifting through the air. For everyone, it was just another day of business. But for Michael Whitmore, something lingered in his mind, something that wouldn't leave. That image of a black cleaner sitting on the cold marble floor, hunched over a torn textbook under a faint lamp, haunted him. Michael had seen thousands of employees, countless faces pass through his empire, but never had one burned into his memory this way. He sat at his desk, scrolling through stock reports, yet every line blurred. His mind returned to Henry Johnson's words, I clean here to survive, but I study to live. It unsettled him. Michael had grown up privileged, though he liked to believe he was self-made. His father left him a small trust fund, a stepping stone most people never had. Yes, he worked hard, invested smart, took risks, but he started from comfort. For him, books and tutors were always there. He never had to fight for knowledge. Yet here was a man with nothing, studying in the dark, clinging to the hope of something better. That night, Michael had laughed, dismissing Henry's dream as impossible. But now, in the quiet hum of his office, he felt a strange unease. Was it guilt, admiration, or simply curiosity about why a man with so little dared to want so much? Later that evening, when most executives left, Michael walked the corridors again. A part of him wanted to see if Henry would be there. And there he was, kneeling by the same boardroom wall, lamp glowing faintly, lips whispering formulas as he scribbled notes. Michael stood at the doorway, unseen for a moment. The cleaner's focus was absolute, his brow furrowed, eyes scanning the page with hunger. Michael could almost feel the weight of his willpower filling the room. Finally, he stepped inside. Henry looked up, startled again, but this time he didn't hide the book. You're here again, Michael said, folding his arms. Henry nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Why not study at home? Henry hesitated, then answered quietly. No electricity, sir. My place, it's too dark at night. And even if I had light, I share a room with my younger cousins. They need their sleep. I can't disturb them. Michael's chest tightened. He had never once thought about what life might be like without something as basic as electricity. You work all night, then study? Yes, sir. Henry's voice was calm, steady. And during the day, I go to the library when I can. Knowledge, it's the only way out. Michael studied him carefully, almost as if analyzing an investment. And what do you want to do with all this knowledge? Henry's eyes lit, just a little, with the glow of unshaken hope. I want to become an accountant. Maybe start my own firm one day. Help people in my community. those who can't afford lawyers or accountants. My mama always said money is power, and people like us, we never understand how to use it. I want to change that. For a long moment, Michael said nothing. He was torn between two worlds. The hardened businessman who believed only in numbers and profit, and the quiet voice inside him that, for the first time in years, felt respect. But he masked it quickly. Dreams are dangerous, Henry, he said coldly. They make you hope for things the world will never give you. Henry lowered his eyes, but his voice was firm. Then I'll take them, sir. One step at a time. Michael turned and walked away, but the words followed him like a shadow. That night, he couldn't sleep. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out from his penthouse balcony, city lights stretching endlessly. He thought of his youth, his easy access to tutors, private schools, Ivy League lectures. And he thought of Henry, studying in the dark corner of a building that wasn't his, with nothing but stubborn fire in his heart. The millionaire felt something unusual, a crack in his certainty, a stirring of conscience. The next day, while reviewing payroll reports, Michael found Henry's file. Henry Johnson, custodian, hired 2 years ago. Pay, $9.50 per hour. A man trying to climb mountains on crumbs. Against his own instincts, Michael asked the HR manager, "Tell me about this cleaner, Johnson. Good worker." The HR manager, a woman in her 50s, adjusted her glasses. Henry? Oh yes. Quiet. Never late. Takes extra shifts when he can. Never complains. Frankly, one of the most reliable employees we've ever had. Michael nodded, saying nothing more. That evening, he went down again. Henry was there, as always, hunched over his book. Michael sat down across from him. It startled Henry, but he said nothing. "Read to me," Michael said suddenly. Henry blinked. "Sir, read. Whatever you're studying. Explain it like you're teaching me." Hesitant, Henry began. He explained basic accounting principles, balance sheets, assets versus liabilities. His words were shaky at first, but as he went on, confidence filled his tone. He wasn't just memorizing, he understood. Michael listened carefully, nodding. Then, almost against himself, he asked questions. Complex ones. And Henry answered. Not perfectly, but with surprising depth. When they finished, Michael leaned back, silent for a long moment. Then he said, "You're smarter than most interns I've had." Henry's lips twitched into the faintest smile. "Thank you, sir." Michael stood, his expression unreadable. "Don't thank me yet." He paused at the door, then added, "Be here tomorrow. Same time." For the first time in years, Henry felt something he hadn't known since childhood. Someone believed, even slightly, that he was worth more than the world had told him. And for Michael, though he didn't admit it, a strange curiosity had shifted into something else, recognition. He had stumbled upon a story of resilience that was about to change not only Henry's life, but his own. The third night came quietly, as if the city itself had no idea of the unlikely meeting about to unfold once more. Henry was there, exactly as Michael had expected. Same worn textbook, same flickering lamp, same posture of a man carrying both exhaustion and dignity in his shoulders. Only this time, Michael didn't watch from the shadows. He walked straight to the table and pulled out a chair. Henry looked up, surprise flashing across his face. "Sir, you're here again." Michael sat down, unbuttoning his blazer. "I told you yesterday. Teach me. Tonight, we continue." Henry hesitated, then opened his notebook. His hands were calloused from years of scrubbing floors. Yet when he gripped the pen, they moved with precision. He started explaining cash flow statements, writing simple examples. His voice grew steadier the more he spoke, and Michael, the millionaire who had once dismissed him, found himself genuinely intrigued. Minutes turned into an hour. Henry's eyes lit with passion when he explained concepts. Michael noticed it. This wasn't memorization. This was hunger. A man fighting for knowledge the way others fought for food. "You don't just want to pass exams," Michael finally said. "You want this, don't you?" Henry met his gaze without fear. "Yes, sir. Because for men like me, opportunities don't come. We have to chase them, even when they run faster than we can." Michael leaned back, silent. The words gnawed at him. He had always believed in merit, in effort, but Henry's reality was different. Merit wasn't the same for everyone. Some began the race miles ahead, while others crawled just to reach the starting line. After a long silence, Michael said, "Do you know how many people told me I'd never make it? That I wasn't smart enough, bold enough, ruthless enough? They laughed at me once, just like the world laughs at you." Henry tilted his head, cautious but curious. "And what did you do, sir?" Michael's lips curved into a small, almost bitter smile. "I proved them wrong. I worked harder, pushed further. I made myself undeniable. But I had advantages you don't." He paused, his voice softening. "The truth is, Henry, it takes more than hard work. It takes someone to open a door." Henry's hand froze over the page. He looked at Michael as though weighing every word. "Would you open that door for me, sir?" The room grew still. Outside, the city hummed, but inside, there was only the sound of Henry's steady breathing and Michael's racing thoughts. For a moment, Michael said nothing. His mind, ever calculating, reminded him that he didn't owe this cleaner anything. But his heart, the part of him he rarely listened to, whispered something different. Finally, Michael leaned forward. "Teach me again tomorrow. Same time. And Henry, don't call me sir. Call me Michael." Henry's lips parted in quiet disbelief. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, Michael." That night, Henry went home with a strange warmth in his chest. He returned to the tiny one-room apartment he shared with his cousins. The electricity was still out, the walls still cracked, but his heart was different. Someone powerful, someone untouchable, had not only noticed him, but listened. For the first time in years, Henry felt he wasn't completely invisible. Meanwhile, Michael drove back to his penthouse, unsettled. He poured himself another whiskey, but the taste didn't comfort him. Instead, he thought of Henry's eyes, those eyes that carried both fatigue and fire. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that this man, this cleaner, possessed something many of his wealthy peers lacked: resilience born of struggle. The following nights became a quiet ritual. By day, Michael ran his empire. Meetings, negotiations, numbers flashing across massive screens. By night, he sat across from Henry, listening to him explain accounting principles, studying the man's grit. But it wasn't only numbers Henry shared. Slowly, pieces of his life slipped through. He told Michael about his childhood, how his father had been killed in an accident when Henry was only 10, how his mother scrubbed houses until her hands bled just to keep food on the table, how Henry, the eldest, sacrificed school so his siblings could stay in class. "I cleaned floors at 12, Michael," Henry said one night, his voice heavy but steady. "And I never stopped. But books, I never let them go. They were the only part of me I wouldn't sell to survival." Michael listened quietly, something tightening in his chest. He had known struggle, yes, but not like this. His challenges were boardrooms and hostile takeovers, not empty stomachs and darkened apartments. One evening, Henry came with no lamp. The bulb had finally burned out. Michael noticed the disappointment in his eyes. Without a word, Michael pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight, and set it on the table. "Keep going," he said. Henry's lips twitched into a faint smile, and he continued. As nights turned into weeks, their conversations deepened. Sometimes they debated business ethics. Sometimes they shared personal fears. Once, Henry asked Michael, "Do you ever get lonely? Having so much?" Michael froze. He had never admitted it to anyone, but the truth was sharp. "Every day," he whispered. And in that silence, two men, one powerful, one invisible to the world, found themselves connected by the one thing no wealth or poverty could erase: humanity. Yet the outside world knew nothing of this fragile bond forming in the shadows. The city still saw Michael Whitmore as the untouchable millionaire and Henry Johnson as just another cleaner. But both of them knew something was shifting, something that would soon test them both and reveal to everyone watching that dreams, when nurtured, could shatter walls higher than money or prejudice had ever built. The fourth week arrived like an old friend, familiar, expected, yet always holding some new revelation. Michael had begun to anticipate the late evenings with Henry more than the meetings with billionaires, more than the dinners with investors. Something about those hours in the dim janitor's office, hunched over notebooks, had begun to fill a silence in him he had ignored for years. But tonight felt different. Michael arrived earlier than usual, his steps heavier, his mind restless. When he pushed open the door, Henry was already there, scribbling in his notebook. The bulb above flickered weakly, casting his face half in shadow. Henry looked up and smiled faintly. "You're early, Michael." Michael didn't return the smile. Instead, he dropped a sleek folder on the table. Its embossed letters gleamed under the weak light. Whitmore Holdings. Henry's brows furrowed. "What's this?" Michael sat down, his voice steady but carrying an edge of tension. "It's a test." Henry hesitated, then opened the folder. Inside were financial statements, real ones. Complex spreadsheets, charts, numbers so overwhelming they might have scared a trained accountant. Henry's eyes darted across the pages. "This," Michael said slowly, watching him, "is from one of my subsidiaries. A struggling one. If you can analyze this and show me where the leaks are, you'll prove you're more than just someone with dreams. You'll prove you can handle reality." Henry blinked, the weight of the challenge settling over him. He closed the folder gently. "Michael, I clean floors for 12 hours a day. I study in the dark. You're asking me to do what men with degrees and resources struggle with." Michael leaned forward. His tone softened. "I know, but Henry, when you teach me, when I hear you explain these principles, I believe you can, and I don't believe in people easily." The room was quiet. Henry's fingers brushed over the folder again, as if it were fragile glass. Slowly, he nodded. "Then I'll try." That night, they didn't just talk. They worked. Henry's eyes traced every line of numbers, his lips moving as he calculated, erased, recalculated. Michael watched in silence. He expected Henry to stumble, to get lost, but what he saw stunned him. Henry's mind moved with clarity. He didn't know the jargon, perhaps, but he saw patterns. He pointed to expenses that didn't make sense, questioned mismatched figures, highlighted inefficiencies. His words were steady, his reasoning sharp. Hours passed unnoticed. At last, Henry set the pen down, sweat on his brow but fire in his eyes. "This division," he said, tapping the papers, "is bleeding money because of redundant vendors. Someone's profiting off the confusion. Cut that, streamline, and you'll see profits rise." Michael stared at him, speechless. His chest swelled with something between pride and awe. "Henry," he finally whispered, "you just did what my entire team missed." Henry leaned back, exhausted but glowing. "So I passed your test." Michael chuckled, the sound warm and rare. "You didn't just pass, you shattered it." But even as laughter eased the tension, Michael's mind was racing. He had found something extraordinary. Henry wasn't just a cleaner with a dream. He was talent buried under layers of injustice, poverty, and invisibility. The next evening, Michael didn't come empty-handed. He walked in carrying a sleek leather briefcase and set it on the table. Henry looked up, curious. Michael opened the case and pulled out a crisp envelope. He slid it across the table. Henry picked it up hesitantly. Inside was a letter with the Whitmore Holdings seal. His eyes scanned the words, and then they widened. "Michael," he whispered, his hands trembling. This is a job offer." Michael leaned back, watching him carefully. "Not as a janitor. Not as a cleaner. As a junior analyst. Starting salary, triple what you make now. Office training. A real chance." Henry's chest rose and fell rapidly. He looked up, his voice cracking. "Why? Why would you do this for me?" Michael's gaze softened. "Because someone once told me I'd never make it. And I did. Because I see in you what I saw in myself years ago. And because, Henry, no man with your mind should waste his nights under a flickering bulb." Tears welled in Henry's eyes, though he tried to hide them. "Michael, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Michael said simply. Henry clutched the envelope to his chest, breathing unevenly. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." For the first time in years, Henry felt the crushing weight of despair lift from his shoulders. This wasn't just a job. It was dignity. It was proof that his nights of sacrifice, his stubborn refusal to surrender his books, had meant something. Over the following days, Henry's world transformed. He walked into Whitmore Holdings not with a mop, but with a briefcase. Some employees stared, some whispered. To them, he was still the janitor who didn't belong. But when he sat at his desk and opened spreadsheets, his hands steady and his eyes sharp, whispers fell silent. Slowly, respect replaced suspicion. Michael, meanwhile, watched from his glass office. He saw Henry stumble, yes, but he also saw him rise, again and again. Each mistake became a lesson, each day another proof of his resilience. One evening, after most had left, Michael found Henry still at his desk. "You should go home," Michael said. Henry looked up, a tired smile on his face. "I used to clean these floors at this hour. Now I sit at this desk. I think I'll stay a little longer, if you don't mind." Michael chuckled softly. "You remind me why I started all this in the first place." Henry tilted his head. "And why did you?" Michael's gaze grew distant. "Not for money, not for power. To prove them wrong. To prove I mattered." He paused, then looked back at Henry. "And you've just reminded me. Success means nothing if you don't lift someone else with you." Henry's throat tightened, emotion rising. He looked down at his calloused hands, the same hands that had scrubbed toilets, lifted trash, held worn textbooks in the dark. Now those hands were building something greater. But deep inside, Henry knew this was only the beginning. Life had given him a crack in the wall, and Michael had opened a door. What he did next would define not just his future, but the proof that men like him could rise, if only given chance.